advance, besides the recording being in progress? All right, Ben is passing it off to us. We're going to jump into some slides here in a second, but first, before we go there, I just want to talk for a second about how thrilled I am with the reception. I know we have some participants coming in, and some people have signed up just so they can have access to the recording later. This recording will be posted on the Public Finance Journal webpage on the GFOA website. But just I'm blown away that we've had over 100 people sign up for today, and that the interest is in place and in this community for an academic journal focused on public finance. I think it's thrilling, and the two incredible gentlemen, academics and friends that are on the webinar today, our panelists, are the co-editors of this journal. So before we dive in, I just want to say thanks to a couple people. Ben Walker, who is from our education team, who will be helping to make sure today goes smoothly. Jake Kowalski, who's also on as a panelist. Jake is a friend and colleague from RCC, the Research and Consulting Center at GFOA, who will be helping staff and man any issues and questions on the content side. And finally, from the RCC team, Shane Cavanaugh, who has been an early champion of all of this work and really started to make this push years ago. And I'm very excited to be at this culminating moment. So thanks to the support of the executive team and the board of GFOA, we are here today. And so without further ado, I'm going to begin by introducing our two presenters today. Craig Maher is from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. And I will let you say a few words in a second. And Bruce McDonald III from North Carolina State University. These two gentlemen, I like the third, makes you sound like a Supreme Court justice. These two gentlemen are our inaugural co-editors of this first-time journal from GFOA. So Craig and Bruce, would you like to say a few words before we jump in?
So thank you. I'm Craig Maher. I'm at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I've been in the academy for 20 some years. I'll often refer to myself as a recovering local official. I served in local government. I've served on a city council for 2 terms. And so I kind of get what local governance is about. And I was very delighted to be contacted by Bruce, what is it, probably almost a year ago, to be part of this endeavor. And I'm really grateful to have you all here. It's nice to see that there is interest in this given topic, and I hope we have a good discussion. Thank you.
And I'll just kind of reiterate what Craig said, that, this is exciting for this to be, coming to, fruition. We're excited to be able to help answer the kind of questions that the field of practice has, and to provide an outlet for academics to also kind of engage back with the community.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into just a couple of quick slides, and these slides have been put up on the website, both the link for today's webinar and the website, which we'll be sharing addresses going forward. The reason we tried to capture all of this into a deck is so you had this information so you could go back to it. And so, I'm going to walk us through kind of some basic who, what, when, where, and how questions. But I think the first question for both of our panelists today is the bigger question. Why? Why do we need public finance journal? So if you guys could talk a little bit about, as you both, and Bruce, you're editor on a number of journals. What was it that put you to a place? For what reasons did public finance journal need to exist?
Sure.
Bruce,
So
you want to start?
I'll jump in first. So as Kyle mentioned, I am editor for another journal. I'm the editor of Public Administration, which is the oldest English language journal in the field of public administration. It's 101. But it is a very traditional academic journal in that it publishes and engages with the academic community. There's a big part of me that likes, that engage with the academic community, but my background prior to becoming an academic myself was actually in the field of practice, albeit a little bit of a different variety. I spent a couple of years working on the Hill doing budgeting for members of Congress and overseeing defense and agriculture appropriations. So still in the world of budgeting as a practitioner, but what I saw and experienced in that career was kind of a disconnect between what academics were interested in, what practitioners were interested in. And that has always kind of carried with me, where I'll be at conferences or reading journal articles, and a lot of the times the things that academics are caring about, it's interesting, but does it really contribute back or help our communities improve upon themselves? And I think that's kind of where this journal fits in, because we're looking at that connection between practice and the academic side, trying to actually answer questions that are important or relevant to those who are actually doing the day-to-day job. So how can we work to improve that dynamic, that community? And I think that's what makes the journal important. That's what kind of makes us unique. We have journals in other disciplines. The more science side, you think of the journals like of Science or Nature, where they are very much kind of academic rigor, but have that practical application. And that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of what PFJ could become.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to add to what Bruce said. Everything he said is exactly why we're doing this. I guess I'll add a couple of things. One is, again, this idea, like being in public administration, it's a very normative field. I think Bruce and I and many of our colleagues got involved as academics in public administration versus, like, my degrees are in political science. But public administration is one of those amazing areas where we do try to find those synergies between what practice is and what the academy is. Unfortunately, there are a number of reasons why, but to Bruce's point, the top public administration, public finance journals do not have quite the focus on practitioners' needs so much as they do focus on advanced techniques, sort of moving forward, helping one's career develop as a scholar kind of stuff. And so the hope here is that we have a forum, sort of pull back and pose those questions. Is this topic, is this research truly germane to what the field is in need of?
Yeah, I'll add the thing that we haven't mentioned so far. The journal's fully open access. So, if you go to a traditional academic journal, you might find something that's interesting to you, but you spend $30, $40 to try and read the article, and then you might discover that it's not exactly what you were looking for. There's a cost or a paywall for the vast majority of academic journals. One of the things that's been a central focus to PFJ is that it's fully open access. So you don't have to pay to read any of the articles. You don't have to pay to submit, pay to publish, or anything else. It's trying to provide useful research and as easy as an accessible way, as open, as cheaply to the community as absolutely possible.
And I love that you brought that up, Bruce. We're going to talk a little bit more about that just so people understand kind of the barriers to entry that are traditionally there that we've tried to remove. Before we go forward to next topic, I just wanted to touch on this because it was something, you know, completing my MPA and my PhD 20 years apart. It was something that I was a little bit disappointed hadn't changed more. Was that disconnect you all are describing between the academy and practitioners. Can we talk a little bit about what you see as synergies, why you have hope and think that this journal will provide for better intersectionality as it relates to the academy and practitioners? What do you see as those synergies? And please feel free to fold in GFOA as well as you think about the academy, those that we support at GFOA who are doing the work out in the field, and GFOA as an entity itself.
So, you know, I think part of it, you know, the disconnect between, you know, the academy and practice is, you know, the academy is very much centered on the theory creation and theory testing, which is really great, really important, really useful, but not necessarily that relevant back to the academic side that just, or the practitioner side that just needs to know what to do. You know, from a academic standpoint, we kind of tell people, you know, you'll learn about the theory and your classes, and then, you know, you can take that forward and go off and do the application side. But, you know, that timeline can be, you know, decades between when you're learning something in the classroom and when the issue finally pops up. You know, there might be timing issues, there might be, you know, relevancy issues, that our knowledge might have changed, that we figured out that something is a little bit different. And so, you know, having that length of time between the transition from the academic interest to the practitioner application side, you know, is really not that useful to anybody. You know, we also have on the academic side, the, you know, focus of the journals tend to be, you know, kind of follow what the academic interest is, that we are interested in the theory development, the theory creation, not necessarily the testing and the application. And so without that emphasis from the journal standpoint, you know, it's harder for academics to get those manuscripts published. So then there's less of an incentive for the academics to do that as well. So really this becomes kind of a nice opportunity between the GFOA community and academics to say, you know, here's what we think is going to be important. You're doing that engaged research that actually can have meaning and impact, and we're supporting that, or we're putting the resources behind it by having an outlet that will meet the needs from the academic community in terms of what we need in order for our careers, but also then what the practitioner side needs as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bruce. Craig, any thoughts? I know UNO has done some real work to try and bridge institutionally that gap. What do you see as the synergies going forward?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. Prior to this meeting, I just sat on an hour-long session regarding AI and its growing role in the field of budget and finance. And a lot of that discussion had to do with its application. What are some best practices? How do I utilize this within my department, within my division? That's really important work. It's not necessarily something that is going to probably come out of, you know, your major public administration top-ranked journals for a while. But we already have, remember correctly, Bruce, we've got 2 manuscripts in Public Finance Journal pipeline that are, again, trying to help us think about what does this look like, and how might it be practical within that given space. The other thing that I think makes this somewhat unique is this is the only journal of which I know where the reviewers, so we go through a double-blind review process. We have practitioners not only on our editorial board, but we require that at least one practitioner review the manuscript that's in the pipeline. So we're getting the perspectives from both an academic lens and uniquely from a practitioner's perspective.
Craig, that was, oh, go ahead, Bruce.
Nope, after you.
No, please.
I was going to say, reiterating Craig's aspect of what he said about the reviewers. We want to make sure that everything is accessible to the practice community. Academics, we can, we write a lot, but we also write in a very unique academic oriented style that's not really that accessible. And so, part of the review process and part of the editing process for the manuscripts is making sure that they are accessible to anybody who wants to sit down and be able to read them.
I think that's great. And I'm going to capitalize on what Craig was saying earlier on the who. We've met you two. You two are vital to this journal, but you're not the only people who are making it go. Craig, you talked a little bit about the submission process and who's reviewing it. Can you two talk to us about who the editorial board of this group is? It's a pretty austere and impressive group of people. You don't have to name them by names. Can give a couple examples and the kind of people we're looking to have on the editorial board of PFJ. Bruce, I know you've done a lot of work in bringing this group together.
Sure. So I'll start. She's not on the editorial board, but she is one of our editorial team members, Megan Jordan. Pointing her, she's actually on the attendees list for today. She's our book review editor who looks to kind of make sure that we have books being reviewed and discussed for the journal that are going to be relevant to both communities. So we're looking for different books that are being published, but then both academics and practitioners who are willing to look at the books and kind of talk about what they mean back for the field of practice. We also have Sarah Larson from the University or Miami University. Sorry, I got to get the directionality of Miami University right there. Who's our social media editor, who manages our Twitter page, our Facebook page, our LinkedIn, who tries to make Craig and I look good and successful. So, always appreciate that. In terms of our editorial board, we look for kind of two sides of things. We look for balance between academics and practitioners. So we have a editorial board will ultimately be 30 people. We bring 10 people on each year for a 3-year term. And so right now we're kind of building it as we go. So we have 20 people who are on the editorial board. And then in December of 2024, we'll add the final 10 to make up our 30. And it's really split between that nice balance of academics and practitioners. So we have a number of kind of well-established academics, but then we also have people from Tammy Weimeyer from GASB. So we have somebody from the government, Tammy is from the Government Accounting Standards Board, National Association of State Budget Offices. And so we're trying to kind of build out that kind of perspective. We have Carolyn Bordeaux, who is a former academic who turned member of Congress on there, so who helped run the budget for the state of Georgia for a number of years. And so really we are kind of looking for a variety of people from different backgrounds, because the material getting discussed in the journal comes at all different sites and parts and crevices of what makes up public budgeting and finance for the government community.
And I'll just add, one way to think about what we're trying to do is basically align the editorial board with the area that GFOA occupies. So it's predominantly local government, state government. We've got a really nice representation of academics and practitioners in the US. And we're trying to also break into the Canadian space as well. So if anybody has suggestions, if you are interested in being part of the editorial board, let us know. But we're trying to sort of mirror what the practice of government finance and budgeting looks like in that particular space.
That's fantastic in terms of talking about the editorial board, and Bruce, thank you for calling out some of those individuals who've taken above and beyond leadership roles in helping to bring this to fruition. You talked about who's going to be reviewing. Who should be submitting? Who are we looking for as writers? I know for many of the people that I've been speaking to about this, maybe academic journals were never on the radar to submit to as a practitioner. So who should be submitting to this? What's the reason an academic would submit to this or a practitioner, or both? Because we're looking for that partnership too. So talk a little bit about who should be submitting to PFJ.
Everybody should be submitting to PFJ.
Thank you for taking advantage of that softball, Craig. I really do appreciate you teeing off on it. Thank you.
But if we're being realistic here from an academic standpoint, there are a number of us who are really interested in the application of budget and finance research. The more commonly identified public finance journals, of which they're exceptional, but the requirements of those journals are a little bit different from what we're looking for. And so my suspicion and what we're seeing is that the more experienced academics who aren't tethered to needing to meet certain tenure requirements, because that's what the Academy's life is about, but who want to make better connections to what this means in a practical space. This is a journal, I think, that affords that opportunity more so than the more commonly identified journals. And for those who are practitioners, again, the bar is set pretty high for these journals. I think our bar is set pretty high too, but the lens through which we're trying to understand the research is a little bit different. So if you're a practitioner and you have an interest in a given topic, we strongly encourage you to go to the journal's website. We talk about submissions, what we're looking for, what that process looks like. And I'll also mention, I kudos to Bruce, co-editor. He gets all that. So he recently created a space on the journal's website that I have never seen in any professional journal. And that is, he's created this area where you can post, you're interested in a given research topic, and then hopefully others will see that. And the expectation would be that here's a forum by which we can more strongly connect what it is the community is looking for, and possible research topics, connections, access to information, data that may not be quite as easily accessible in a more traditional format.
I love the conversation that we're having, and we're going to point to the website so that people can see, Craig, what you were referencing for both of you as academics. I really do appreciate. I think there is a barrier to entry in terms of some of these journals and some of these articles, be it, as Bruce talked about earlier, the paywall or the need to have certain credentialing to apply. What I hear both of you talking about is the demystification of some of this, that to really get this to a place where it gets used and people are talking about it and working together, it can't be mysterious. And I really do appreciate you guys walking through a little bit about the thinking behind who's involved, who are the gatekeepers that may have been traditionally keeping people out, where I hear you talking about inviting them in and giving more opportunities and more ideas. So when we're talking about the what and what the journal is about, you guys talked about that in theory, but in application, can you talk about the real desire to get practitioners involved in this work? What does that mean to academics, to have people that are doing work in the field, and there may be people that are teaching classes here and there, but what does it mean to get practitioners more involved in the work of academics as it relates to PFJ?
I'll say, I think it comes in a couple different ways. So one, my second screen, I actually have the idea board open, and there's a couple people actually putting up ideas onto there of things that need research, which I think is awesome. Part of the disconnect between practitioners and academics is a lot of academics, you kind of exist in silos. And so just knowing what is important and what is useful for research, or for that, for the field of practice, of what do you need. And so having a outlet where practitioners can actually tell us, here are the kind of things that we need, here are the ideas that we have that would really kind of help make our job better. And so then as academics, as we become ready for our next research project, we can go and say, here's this list of opportunities. So this spring I'm teaching a PhD in budgeting class, and part of the assignment is they have to write a final paper of publishable quality, but instead of letting them kind of choose their own, they're choosing one of their topics for the paper based off what's on the board, so that there's immediately people out there who are actually addressing and accessing the questions. And so kind of creating that synergy between practice and academics. But also you have a lot of practitioners who are really interested in not just saying, here's the research that I need, but here's the research that I would actually like to be involved in. And you might not have anybody near you, or you might not know somebody who's interested in that similar kind of topic, and you might have data, or just are whatever your situation is, that you can post up there saying, I'm interested in doing this, here's my contact information. And then you can have an opportunity for academics to say, well, I'm interested in that same kind of thing, let's work on something together. Or, well, I have data, but I don't necessarily have the time to do a full paper on my own. You can still post about that and still have the opportunity for academics to come back and say, that sounds awesome, let's work on it. So there's definitely a lot of connection that way that we're trying to build into it as well.
And if I could add one more piece to this, and Kyle was part of this. I mean, research shouldn't exist. I mean, research should exist for research sake. However, but this is a field of public administration, and Bruce and I and the colleagues that he mentioned who are part of the journal, we're also instructors. We teach at the undergraduate level, we teach at the master's level, we teach at the PhD level. And it's the research that gives us a sense of what it is we should be covering in those courses. I held a meeting, a mini conference earlier in the spring. Kyle was there. We had half the room was practitioners, half the room was academics. And I'll be honest, we got as researchers, as academics, we got taken to task by the practitioners. So our concern also is that there may be a disconnect between that which we're teaching in budget and finance classes and that which the practice is in need of. Hopefully, the efforts that we're trying to do with PFJ will help us better understand how we can not only be good researchers, but what the content is, perhaps that we're not truly covering in the classroom, that puts our students in the best positions to excel in their careers post-graduation.
Greg, I love that. And I love that because I think we've, you know, and in the deck, you'll see the word intersectionality a couple of times, in that we want there to be a moment where the academy and practitioners come together. But it's not just those two institutions coming together. It's also a timing question. And one of the things that's a challenge is oftentimes the academy wants to wait until things are done and that you can look at a complete picture. And the practitioner doesn't have that luxury, and in fact is often critiqued for not making decisions in a timely manner and getting things into practice and programs rolling, and letting great be the enemy of good as it relates to doing the work of the public sector. Can you talk about what you hope to see in terms of that timing, that messy middle, getting academics kind of pulled a little more into process questions, and the practitioners being able to get better information during and as they're doing the work from partners in academia?
In an ideal world, that, you know, this could be a forum for that. I think it's it's something that we're going to have to wait and see what happens. And it could also be that I don't mean to call out GFOA, but I will. You know, perhaps the journal also can serve as a conduit on a couple of different levels. And so one of the things, for instance, that we're hoping to do at the next GFOA conference is to have a panel. And so maybe there are writing opportunities, there are publication, and that will meet a certain set of needs, but maybe there are also opportunities to do trainings, to participate in events that could perhaps speak to some of these more process-oriented, germane things that are perhaps more difficult to do from a journal like manuscript perspective.
I don't see it as calling out. I hear it as enlisting in the work. I take it as hope intended in the spirit of partnership of bringing this home. Bruce, any other thoughts on that?
Sorry, I was completely distracted. I'm answering one of the Q&A questions.
Well, then we will enlist you on the next question, which is about the GovFi prize, and I would love for both of you to weigh in on what is I think a very unique carrot in terms of trying to bring some of what we've been discussing in that partnership and that intersectionality and that timeliness to fruition by putting some dollars up for investment in Startup for Questions, and then rewarding great thinking and answers to a couple of questions. You guys want to talk a little bit about the GovFi prize? I don't mean to interrupt you in your answering, Bruce.
No, no, you're fine. Sorry, I'm hitting send right now. So the idea behind the GovFi prize is one that Shane Kavanaugh with the GFOA originally came up with. You know, the idea that there are questions that are going to be of interest and use for the practitioner community that we'd really like to see academics do the research on. The problem is always, how do we get academics to do very targeted research questions? And so it's kind of a solution that the GFOA is trying out to see, can we make this work, where each year there's going to be a series of different research questions and academics can propose a paper on one of those questions, and if their paper gets chosen, they get a small stipend to help facilitate the finishing of that paper. And then once it's finished, it gets submitted to PFJ for us to send through the review process and to publish. And then ultimately the best papers that come through that process get a award at the very end. So we're hoping that that kind of creates this financial incentive for academics to engage in these really important, very, very useful kind of questions.
It's very well stated, Bruce, and we're hoping that this is a popular engagement for folks, and we're hoping that that we get to continue to evolve. There's 4 questions, and we'll talk about where to find those, but there's 4 questions this year. This is not a one and done. We're hoping that people engage with them and that we can continue to evolve and add questions. I think this is an interesting opportunity. Craig, I know you've talked about this at some panels and with some academic conference groups. What's been the initial feedback on it?
It's been really exciting. And it's exciting on a couple of different levels. First, to be able to have funding to conduct some research is always a plus. And knowing that the topic on which one is writing is there is a vested interest in it is also great. And then third, the idea that there is the potential, at least we'll say potential, because they still have to go through a review process, but at the end of the day, a really good, well-written paper could be published is a win-win. And I would also suggest, again, if there are practitioners who are interested in some of these topics, there may be ways, maybe it's through the research needs bulletin, other ways by which we could connect interested researchers in the academy with you, so that we continue to have these synergies between the academy and practice.
Thank you both for that. I know, Bruce, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but the idea of an open access journal, why is that so unique? What is different from other academic journals, and why does that make this more advantageous in terms of practitioners and academics? Can you talk a little bit about the open access idea?
Sure. So part of the problem we have in the publishing world is the cost of access to journal articles or to even journals. If you want to subscribe to a journal, it can be a couple $100s a year if you're lucky. There's some journals that can be upwards of $2,000 a year to subscribe to. So the other journal that I had at Public Administration, for instance, if you're an organization, it's going to cost you about $2,500 a year to subscribe to it. It's not exactly cost efficient for most governments to spend that much money on just one journal, especially when you have lots of different journals and you don't know where the research that you're going to be interested in is going to pop up. So there's this large cost barrier between everybody actually accessing the research that's going to be relative or of interest or of use to them. The way to overcome this is to kind of go what we call an open access route. It's where it's free, anybody can log on, anybody can read it. The kind of trade-off between open access and a traditional journal is, on the traditional journal where you have that paywall, you have the publisher who does all the back-end stuff of doing the formatting and everything else. Instead, by being open access, all that gets handled in-house by Craig and I and our team. And so we're doing a lot more of the kind of work ourselves. But the trade-off is that it ensures that everything becomes freely accessible to anybody who needs it. So not only are we trying to publish useful research, but you don't have to worry about the logging on and finding out that it's going to cost you $35 to access just that one article, or whatever the cost might be for other journals that are out there. And so really, you can log on. It's always going to be free no matter where you are. You can freely share the articles. You can even post them onto your own websites if you need to. All that kind of comes back to this idea of what's called the open access license. So you can reprint, you can print them as much as you need to, so that it's fully accessible by anybody at any point in time. One of the Q&A questions is asking about, is it funded by the GFOA? We are, which is how we're able to have that fully open access side by the GFOA helping to cover the costs associated with things like the copy editors, the website, the software, and everything else that goes into it.
I think one of the challenges is that with that intersectionality on topic, there's also an intersectionality of being two of the most chronically underfunded institutions, being academics and government and public academics and public finance. I think the fiduciary responsibilities of cities, Bruce, inhibit us doing lots of things that may benefit us just because we're trying to be good stewards. And so I think that intersectionality of chronically underfunded means that open access is really important, so that both groups get full run of this. Craig, were you going to say something in addition?
I was just going to say another unique aspect of the journal is you're not going to have to wait for a full edition to be available to see the papers that are going to be published. So as soon as they've gone through the process, as soon as they've been fully signed off by the reviewers, by Bruce and I, those manuscripts will begin being posted free access on the journal's website.
Craig, you are my transition partner in this. This is like the best improv I've done in a while, having you walk into this. So can we just talk about the whens? Because I think this is something that is a little bit different, even for academics that have been submitting to journals in the past. When can someone submit the article for you all? When is there a day? Is there a deadline? When can I submit articles to you? And then talk about that article publication, Craig, that you were just talking about. When do I submit, and when would that be published?
So Bruce and I are keenly aware that we've had manuscripts that have taken upwards of 2 years to go from draft version to journal print version. We're going to try to reduce that window a little bit. And so you can submit manuscripts anytime. Bruce and I are checking the website on, if not a daily basis, pretty close to a daily basis. When something comes in, we're immediately looking. First, we'll take a cursory review of the manuscript to see if it fits the journal's profile. If we think that it's of sufficient quality to move forward, we identify the reviewers, get that processed out. We have relatively tight, we try to have relatively tight windows for review. And I think we're definitely gonna try to turn these around as quick as possible. Some of that depends upon a lot of that depends upon reviewer timelines, but we should be able to shorten that pretty substantially. And Bruce, I'm going to throw this out. I think what we're aspiring for is the window from if you submit a good manuscript to actual publication on the journal is probably going to be under 6 months.
I think that's fair. No, I think, definitely trying to make it as fast as possible because of the questions are things that are relevant or pertinent, to the timing, that we do want to make that, quick. One of the challenges for an academic journal or for any journal is always, finding reviewers for the process. And, since Craig and I are academics, we know the academic community, but it's all, since we try to have things reviewed by practitioners as well, trying to find the practitioner reviewers can be a little bit more challenging for us. So, we're always looking for more. One of the Q&A questions was asking if we're looking for reviewers. You can go to the journal's website and create an account. And what that does is it lets us know that you're there, that you're willing to be a reviewer, so that when pieces come through, we can assign them to you.
And so I can submit an article at any time, and that article will go through the review process, and it will be published when the review process has been done. What does it mean to be published then in the Public Finance Journal? Talk about what that journal, the twice a year, looks like. What's included in that journal?
Sure. So our goal is to publish the journal twice a year, spring and then fall. Each issue has a couple different things that we're looking for. One, of course, the traditional articles, but we're also looking for what we call kind of more of a survey literature review article that is on, a topic that is interesting to both academics and practitioners. It kind of says, here's what we really know about this topic, so that if you're looking and you need to learn more about capital budgeting, for instance, you can go and you can look at that latest piece that's published on capital budgeting, and it gives you that kind of quick in-depth knowledge that you might need to know. And then also 2 to 3 book reviews on recent books that have come out, that are kind of talking about what the book means for the field, but also what it means for those in practice.
The articles will be available as soon as they've gone through the process, but then those articles will be included formally in one of the 2 journals every year, so that people can reference where they've been published.
Right. So as soon as it's accepted, we start the production process to get it formatted and copy edited. It shows up on the website as what's called an online first article. And then once the issue comes out, it gets moved from online first to the issue itself. And so you'll still be able to continue to find it online. It'll have what's called a DOI. It's a direct object identifier. That's the permanent link for it. So even if it moves from that online first to the article, the issue itself, you'll always be able to kind of track it back and have that clear single connection for it.
Excellent. And the GovFi prize, we're trying to align those GovFi submissions to be in the fall journal. And so because of that timing, we're looking for abstracts. That's not articles. Can you just quickly talk about what an abstract would look like for those of those that are listening that are practitioners, what we're looking to get by mid-January? Craig, you want to handle that?
Yeah, sure. So an abstract would be, we're talking 500 words or less. And I usually will say you should answer 3 questions. What's the topic? Why is it interesting? And how are you envisioning answering that question?
This is why you were a good professor. That is one of the most elegant abstract. I could have used you a couple of years ago, for sure. That is brilliant. So that's what we're looking for. is it's not so much quick and dirty. There is a formality to it, but we're looking for specifics about what you're looking to do. You don't have to do the work in terms of developing the article, but we are looking for what you are thinking about doing, what you're gonna propose to publish, and how you're gonna do it. All right, so where we put all the links into the webinar, into the deck, and I don't want this to be confusing. Bruce talked about this a little bit. There is a formality to this because it's an academic journal. And so we have the publicfinance.org is the formal website where the journal will be submitted, where editorial work and curatorial work is happening, and where the journal will be published. For those of you that are GFOA members and came to this through GFOA, there will always be a web page on our website. So if you forget how to get between the two, you can have the portal going back and forth. The GovFi prize will be housed on the GFOA website, and all of the submission technical portal and all of the submission criteria, the questions, all of that is on the site. And ultimately, the editions of Public Finance Journal will be located as that open access document on the Public Finance Journal website. So that's all there, and it's in the deck, and I will put my email in at the end. If you have any questions about anything at the end of this, you're welcome to reach out to me. So just quickly, just talk to us about some of the technical. We've had lots of really good conversation and thoughts on why this exists, what it is. Just talk to people about how to apply for the article in PFJ. There's style of content you're looking for. Can you just talk people through a little bit about what you're looking for a submission to PFJ, both as an abstract and the content of the article?
Bruce, you did a wonderful job kind of setting up. There is a link on the journal's website. So if you click under submissions, there's also then a link you can click on that describes author guidelines. I really encourage everybody who's interested in writing for the journal to take a look at that. I think Bruce uses this really nice analogy that we're looking for something along the lines of like what you might read in like a Nature magazine. So the manuscripts we're looking to be shorter in length than you would find in many academic journals, or most manuscripts are in the 10,000 word range. We're looking for manuscripts in that probably maybe in that 6,000 to 7,000 range. It could be highly quantitative, but the manuscript can focus, we find in some manuscript, can focus, exclusively or solely. These aren't methods papers that we're looking for. We're interested in what that research can mean to the practice of public budgeting in finance. I don't really know much. Bruce, is there anything you want to sort of add to what it is we're looking for in these manuscripts?
Part of the challenge we've had over the past few months is we get asked that question a lot, and it's hard to give a precise answer because we don't have any articles posted yet. The good news is that should change the next 2 or 3 weeks as the stuff for that first issue finishes coming back in and it's reviewed or revised process. So you'll be able to kind of look at that and get an idea of kind of the structure that it's we're looking for. But ultimately, kind of what Craig said, the submission guidelines do give a little bit of guidance. But if you have something that you're working on, you're not quite sure, you're always welcome to send us an email and say, here's what I'm doing. And then we can give you kind of feedback and help give you some guidance along the way to get it to where the shape that we're looking for, the structure that we're looking for the journal.
And Bruce, I'm glad Craig shouted you out. I love this idea that you have embedded on the website about how practitioners and academics can find each other in terms of the topic areas and the partners. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that's elegant. It's simple, but it's elegant what you've done on the website.
Sure. So I just put the link directly to it back into the chat for everybody. But it's really just kind of almost think of it as a whiteboard or a bulletin board where you can put post-it notes up of questions or ideas that you have. There's a link to it at the very top of our page. It says research needs bulletin board. You click on there and it takes you to it. And it gives you just that opportunity where you can fill in these post-it notes of here's what my idea is, or here's what we need to work on, or whatever it is that, if it's a idea that you have that you want to work on, but you're looking for a co-author, you're able to post that there as well. And then we regularly monitor it so that, one, we don't have any kind of trolling or anything else going on the board, but also so that when people come back to us and say, I'm looking for topics, we can say, here's this. Or if someone's saying, I have data and I'm interested in doing a paper with somebody, that we can go, well, I know somebody who might be interested in that, and kind of help connect the dots for you.
I think it's just beautiful that exists, and I think it is very much in the spirit of what we're trying to do with Public Finance Journal. I can't even begin to articulate how grateful I am for the leadership that you two, obviously, as everyone could see, have run with relative to PFJ in terms of bringing us to the threshold of articles and issues existing, but your passion for this and your passion for the idea of this intersectionality and bridging some gaps in the field that you two have committed your professional working lives to. I'm so appreciative of both of you. You guys have done a great job of answering questions as we've been going. Is there anything, I know there was some Canadian questions, and Bruce, you touched on that. We're looking for partners from Canada. I know, Bruce, you put it in the chat, but you want to talk about the book idea and some of the things that we'd love to see from our Canadian partners?
Sure. So what I put in the chat was a comment from Megan Jordan, our book review editor. One of the challenges that we have, we represent the GFOA, membership in its fullness, which is both the U.S. and Canada. So we want to make sure that we do have some representation and some acknowledgement of what's going on in Canada as well. So whether it's research that's focusing on Canada, or if there's a book about budgeting and finance that's coming out of scholars in Canada, whatever that might be, we're definitely interested in knowing about that, being able to work with you in publishing that. So the email address of our book review editor is there in the chat. It's just bookreviews@publicfinance.org. So if you have that book about Canada or interested in doing a book review, feel free to reach out to her. One of the things we're trying to do is also from the editorial team side to have a representation of kind of the broader GFOA membership. So we do have some members on the editorial board who are representing Canadian institutions and organizations. But of course, we're always looking for more. So whether it's on the editorial side or whether it's on the content side, we definitely want to make sure that we're representing both sides of the membership.
One of the other questions that got asked that I would just love one of you to touch on is, for academics, one of the challenges is it's easier to get published if you are a tenured faculty professor, and it's tough to get tenure until you've published. And so one of the things we were hoping in this is to give people earlier in their time in the academy some opportunities to publish. That goes for practitioners as well. There was a question here about whether we would positively look at someone who had more tenure in the field of working versus younger. And I know Bruce, I think you shot an answer. Well, we're open access in every direction. We're looking for people young in their careers or senior in their careers. Craig, you want to touch on that just for a second about who's welcome to put thinking into this journal?
Yeah, I think you've hit it right on the head. I mean, there are we're trying to remove some of those barriers, and one of what we're really hoping for is, even if you don't necessarily have the time to write a manuscript, Bruce and I know there are a lot of eager academics, many of them perhaps pre-tenure, who are interested in ideas and getting access to information and perhaps data. So, give you an example. When I was on a city council, I got to know the finance director really well. Recently, I was asked to write a case study piece. So I reached out to the finance director, basically, and I'm sure many of you will appreciate this. He said, "I've got no time to write this, but if you want data, here's a bunch of data," which made my life a lot easier. I was able to write the piece, and it was a really nice partnership. That doesn't necessarily always have to be the case here, where you've got academics doing the writing, practitioners providing the data, but we're hoping there are these opportunities to perhaps delve into something, and it may be something that somebody early in their career has experienced and perhaps has been grappling with, that you don't maybe have that necessarily that network that somebody more senior may, or it's just a more sort of current, compelling challenge. Bring it. And then you've got more senior folks who maybe this is something that's been gnawing at you for some time during your career, and you've never really had a forum to write about it. Bring it. We're interested. Same way in which perhaps when we sort of manage a classroom where we've got a cadre of pre-career students in our budget and finance classes, and we've got a cadre of mid-career professionals. And how do you sort of work through and make sure that this is a learning environment for all. I rambled quite a bit, so I don't know if I answered your question there, Kyle.
Well, I think the combination of open for all and bring it on is an interesting one. That we're here for all of you, but we're actually really excited to see what you bring. We're right at the top of the hour, and I want to thank Bruce and Craig for the work to this point, for the champion, for the excitement. And I also want to recognize my colleagues in the executive leadership and the board of GFOA for their confidence and desire to see this come to fruition. For those of you that are on the call, we'd love to talk more about this. And if you want to submit, please feel free to do so. If you want to let this sit for a while and percolate, some group of us or all of us will be at the conference in June and would be happy to have the conversation then or in between. So on behalf of GFOA and the Public Finance Journal, thank you to our co-editors. Thank you to the team back at the office and Jake and Ben. And thank you mostly to all of you as attendees who were part of this today. Thank you for your interest and your time and attention. And we look forward to engaging with you as writers or as readers or as both with the Public Finance Journal in the new year. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.